Good afternoon, Facebook Live. I'm Chief Meteorologist Alan Seals. We are doing a lesson today on clouds. It's the one thing that you see no matter where you are on Earth. They decorate the sky. They give us shade from the sun. They keep us warm in the winter when temperatures could be low. And overall, it's just a pretty sight. So give me one moment here to do a little technical house cleaning. Of course, we're going live from Mobile, Alabama, from my NBC 15, also known as WPMI TV. I'm the chief meteorologist there. And what we're going to do today is talk about the different names of clouds, the types of clouds, and we are also going to talk about, one moment here, we're going to talk about using social media and trying to do 2 or 3 things at the same time. So that's what I'm doing. It's called multitasking. So I'm actually working from home today as a meteorologist, so I'll be on TV later this evening, except I'll be on from home. Technology allows us to do these things, and we are making sure that we are able to keep the weather forecasts going. I'm almost done here, and then we'll officially start this. Operating several devices. And there we go. All right, so I know a lot of you will have questions, and I'll be done. This will be about a 20-minute lesson. You don't need any tools. At the end of the lesson, we're going to make a cloud in this bottle. Pretty cool. And as we go along, because people may be asking questions on 2 different Facebook pages, I'll be going back and forth on those. So bear with me again as we do one last setup here. Looks good. Thanks, Thomas. Thomas is checking in already. And make sure the volume is down on my computer. All right, so I think we're just about set here. All right, so it's all about clouds. And clouds are basically 2 types of clouds. You have cumulus clouds and you have stratus clouds. And when you look at those words, you know the word accumulate. Accumulate is when you build something up in one spot, a big pile of something. So we all want to accumulate money, right? Right, so we want to accumulate big piles of money. So cumulus comes from that same word. Stratus, it's a word that you'll hear someone say, oh, everything is stratified. Stratified means smoothed and stretched out. So right there, those 2 names tell you the description of the cloud. A cumulus cloud grows tall, a stratus cloud grows wide. So that's your basic cloud type. We'll go through this, and I'm going to share a lot of these photos. Some of you know my hobby since I was a kid has been taking pictures. So I love to take pictures of the sky and the clouds. And what you see behind me, those are cumulus clouds. Really pretty clouds. They decorate the sky just about every day. And you notice the different colors. Some are really bright white, some are a little bit dark. And they're dark because they're in the shadows. That's really the only difference, is how the light hits the cloud. There's Connie checking in. Keith is in from Mobile, and Cherie also in. So cumulus clouds, these are actually fairly small. We call them fair weather cumulus clouds because they tell you the weather will be fair. Everybody likes fair weather. And bear with me again. I'm using a different device here that wants to treat me differently. So whenever I fly across the country, I get the window seat, always, so I can take pictures and look out at the clouds. And this is the way those cumulus clouds look if you are at, say, 5 or 6 miles above the ground. They're all kind of like cotton balls. They all have the same distance in between them. And cumulus clouds can be small, medium, or large. When they're small, we call them cumulus humilis, and that's a Latin phrase that means humble cumulus cloud. When they're medium, they are cumulus mediocris, which is medium cumulus. And when they're big, they are cumulus congestus. They're congested and really full. So those are words that meteorologists use to describe the different cloud shapes and colors. Now, look at this one cumulus cloud. It's growing almost straight up like a turret in a castle. So this one is known as Castellanus. I mean, all these clouds have different names, which is really kind of cool. And they all go back to learning English, of course, which comes from Latin, a lot of these terms. There's Connie checking in also. So cumulus clouds can be small, medium, large. They can be tall, they can be wide, they can be skinny, they could be fat. And they could be different colors because the colors all depend on which way the sun is shining on the cloud. All right, and again, you know how this works. Sometimes your devices want to work with you, other times they want to be finicky. Okay, maybe we'll just talk about cumulus clouds for the next 15 minutes. No, we'll do better than that. There we go. All right, downtown Mobile, two different clouds here. The big puffy one is the cumulus cloud. That little skinny one, that's a cloud that did not exist 100 years ago because it's a cloud made as a byproduct of flying high altitude aircraft. It's known as a condensation trail. Now, all clouds are condensation, part of the water cycle, but the condensation trail is when you burn fuel, and you've seen this. When you see a vehicle in front of you pull away and you look at the tailpipe, you see water droplets coming out of the tailpipe. So not only do we find ourselves with carbon and carbon dioxide when you burn fuel, but you also find yourself with water droplets. And these water droplets, when they're way up high in the sky, the relative humidity instantly hits 100%, and you get a little trail of condensation behind the airplane. So those did not exist 100 years ago because airplanes couldn't fly that high. All right, look at this cumulus cloud. You know what that looks like? It looks like a mushroom, and that's exactly what it's doing. What it's telling you is warm air is rising, and when it gets to a certain level and it can't rise anymore, it starts spreading out. So that is a cumulonimbus, the thunderstorm cloud. And the thunderstorm cloud, of course, tells you that you're likely to get lightning, which produces thunder. And that's another picture I took from an airplane. And when you look at this picture, that's not a weather cloud. That's a cloud of smoke. And by definition, a cloud is little tiny particles floating in the air. So it also shows you that when something burns and there's a lot of heat, it rises. Warm air rises, cool air sinks. So when warm air rises in the atmosphere, it carries moisture up, and when the moisture fills the sky, eventually you get condensation, a natural cloud. So here's one that's kind of cool. This you can do while you're off from school if your parents let you borrow their smartphones. You have to set up the phone and use the time-lapse feature. Point it at the sky. And what you'll notice is all sorts of things that you probably never focused on before. All of those clouds are moving with the wind. It's the wind that pushes the cloud along. And from time to time, you'll see a cloud appear out of nothing, and then at other times, you'll see it fade away into nothing. So there's always water floating in the air, but until it bunches together enough to make droplets, you don't see the cloud. But when it does, of course, you do see the cloud. All right, so we talked about cumulus clouds. Now this one, is it bubbly or is it flat? It's flat. So that's your stratus cloud. The stratus cloud blankets the sky pretty much as one solid sheet. It can totally block out the sun, or it can show you a little bit of sun. But the stratus cloud, if you get rain, for example, stratus cloud gives you a steady rain all day long. A cumulus cloud gives you a shower because it grows so fast and then the rain falls so quickly and then it fades away. So across the Gulf Coast in the southeast, we get a lot of cumulus clouds that produce showers. On the west coast, places like Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, you get a lot more stratus clouds that give you that all-day rain. So here's one. I took this in Baldwin County. Now that's a cotton field. That's not snow, and that's cotton. And those are a hybrid. So you can have cumulus or stratus, or you can have both. So those are stratocumulus. So you're seeing both kind of clouds at the same time. And I know one of the popular questions is, and we'll go over the different heights. One of the questions is what heights they are, and can you have more than one? Yes, you can have as many as you want. Now, that again, it's a stratus cloud. But what's unique about this one is it's on the ground. So that's Cooper Riverside Park. The Mobile River is in the distance. So, and when a fog sits on the ground, a cloud, I gave you the answer. Let's see if you were listening. When a cloud sits on the ground, what do you call it? It has three letters. It starts with the letter F. F as in Frank. Fog. Yeah, so that was fog. Now this one's interesting. If you drive up into the mountains, if you're in Tennessee, on the West Coast, or in Alaska, like this picture, you drive up into the mountains. As soon as you drive into the clouds, by definition, it's called fog, simply because it's touching the ground. So if you're beneath it looking up, it's a cloud. If you are in it, looking through it, it's fog. Here's one. This one, we've got a couple of different clouds here. The little tiny thin ones here, now those are cumulus, but they are cirrocumulus. So you can have regular cumulus, altocumulus, or cirrocumulus. And think of if you sing in a choir, you have a tenor, an alto, and a soprano. So for these clouds, the regular cumulus would be tenor. These outside of those are altocumulus. That would be the same as alto. And the cirrocumulus would be the same as soprano. So tenor, alto, soprano, cumulus, altocumulus, cirrocumulus. And you'll notice there's no line in between any of those. They all just kind of merge together. Here's a cool one. These are just kind of splashes of cirrus clouds. And cirrus clouds are thin, they are wispy, and the cirrus clouds are the highest ones. That's at the altitude that airplanes fly. And when they're that high, instead of being made of water droplets, they're made of ice crystals. So once you get above 3 miles in the air, even in the summertime, the temperature goes below freezing. And once you get to about 6 miles above the air, the temperature is about 40 to 50 degrees below zero. So those are ice crystals. And that also tells you when you look at thunderstorm clouds, cumulonimbus clouds, in the summertime, the tops of those clouds are made of ice. So downtown Mobile, and those very high, very thin, very wispy, those are cirrus clouds. Good looking view there. Now, when you look at clouds and study them, even if you have stratus clouds, there are all sorts of little features and things in them that most people never stop and focus on. These clouds have little ripples in them. And just think of it just like being on a lake or on an ocean or a gulf. You look across and you see waves in the water. Well, the clouds have waves too, and that's because when the wind blows, it doesn't always blow at the same speed, at the same height. Sometimes one speed is faster, sometimes the wind crisscrosses, and that creates sometimes a little spin in the air, and sometimes it also creates an up and down motion, and that happens a lot. It happens all the time. In fact, it's happening right now, but unless you have clouds in the air, you don't always notice it. So those were altocumulus clouds. Now here we have two clouds. We have cumulus, the little puffy one, and then we have the little stretched out feathery ones. Those are cirrus. So those would be cirrostratus. Yeah, cirrostratus. All right, this one we'll play. So before I play it, stratus clouds, very thin, cumulus clouds. Here's something else that happens a lot. The atmosphere is just like a river. It's a river of air, and you'll notice the cumulus clouds are moving faster than the stratus clouds, and the stratus clouds have a very sharp edge, and that happens too. The air has different layers, and in the different layers you have different amounts of moisture, and that's why sometimes you'll get clouds that form and totally stop kind of on a straight line. Other points, the clouds keep on going. So just an awesome variety of clouds that you can find and see in the sky. I'll just kind of glance through a few questions here. Zane's checking in from Daphne. All right, so here's one. Cumulus cloud. There's the cumulus cloud. It's bright, it's white, it's crisp like a cauliflower, and that's because when I took this picture, the sun was behind me. But if I were on the other side of that cloud, it would be really dark because the sunlight wouldn't be able to shine through it. So that tells you the color of the cloud depends on which way the sun is hitting it compared to where you are. And as this cloud grows and bubbles, the wind is pushing the old clouds away from it. So cumulonimbus and then nimbostratus. I didn't talk about nimbostratus. Nimbo means raining. So nimbostratus is a cloud that is precipitating, which could be rain or snow or sleet. All right, now study this one. See if you see anything out of the ordinary. There are a couple of things here that are kind of cool. Yep, I already answered Mabel's question there. Thank you, Christine. So here's a shadow of a cloud that's so high you don't even see it because clouds are in layers. So the high clouds can put shadows on the middle clouds, and that's what's happening there. And here's kind of a little hole in the cloud. I'll show you one about that in just a minute. But those were cirrocumulus and altocumulus. Back to the altocumulus, they're puffy, but these are all in rolls, so it's kind of like lines and lines of clouds stretched out. Altocumulus. and more altocumulus. So they can be thick or they could be thin. And they could be pretty at sunset. So these, the higher ones are cirrus, the ones in the middle are cirrostratus. And those always make a good picture at sunset. Now, the color of the cloud depends on the light passing through the air. So whenever the sun is low in the sky and the sun turns red and orange and yellow, the clouds do the same thing because they're simply reflecting the light from the sun. So pretty pictures always at sunset. But this one, this is how the sky really behaves. It usually doesn't just give you one cloud. We've got cumulus, altocumulus. You have those waves over here, just like in the ocean, right there in the middle. Up top, you have some cirrocumulus, and what else? In the distance, you have some stratocumulus. So it's all of the above, and a lot of times there is no one line between the clouds. Here's another cool one. Now, clouds have names. The names come from Latin words. This one is stratocumulus asperitas. Yeah, you have undulatus, which is undulating, and then you have asperitas, which is a random undulation. And I know I'm using big words. If I use a big word and you don't understand, just say, what does that mean? But this is what it means. It means waves in the clouds. And if you think of this picture upside down, if you look at it upside down right now, it looks like waves splashing on a lake or on an ocean or on a bay. So it tells you that the air above us is a fluid, a liquid, but it's actually air. All right, so we have a few more minutes. I wanted to show this one because we all have heard about coronavirus. And for me as a meteorologist, when I first heard the word, I said, wait a minute, there's something around the moon at night when you have altocumulus clouds called a corona. So how did the virus get that same name? What does it have in common? So I looked up coronavirus at the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and what they said was when you look at the smallest possible coronavirus on a microscope, actually let me back up. If you go to the dictionary first, which is what I did, a corona is either a crown or a glow. So when you look at the coronavirus, it has those little spiky things like a crown, and when you look at the moon, it has a glow. But under a microscope, the little corona virus resembles that. So that's where the word corona comes from in the coronavirus. It's not a happy thought, but it is about being aware and knowing where things come from, which is one of the cool things about my job. All right, let's see what else we have here. If we can, there we go. This is the cool picture. So I took this one years ago. I was out in the yard in the fall, and there are two types of clouds here. It started out as just a bunch of altocumulus clouds, a perfectly flat sheet of altocumulus clouds, and apparently an airplane flew through those clouds and it upset the atmosphere. Now the altocumulus clouds are made of water. The ones in the middle, cirrus clouds. Those are made of ice crystals. So when the airplane flew through those clouds, it upset the atmosphere and the water droplets instantly froze and changed to ice. And then the ice started taking all the water droplets away and creating a perfect circle. So the nickname for that is hole punch cloud. It's actually called a fall streak because the cirrus clouds are made of ice crystals. They're falling very slowly. They don't reach the ground, they evaporate. So they're called virga. But either way, it's a really cool thing. Again, another byproduct of airplanes flying in our atmosphere. You know what kind of cloud that is? I don't even have to ask you. That is a hurricane. In fact, that is Hurricane Harvey, taken from the International Space Station. And a hurricane is simply a bunch of little clouds that all work together as a group, and it can be a pretty devastating cloud. Another cloud, this one is unique. It's a funnel cloud up here, but when a funnel cloud reaches the ground, it's called a tornado. So that is a tornado, and it is simply a wind that is spinning really fast, and the cloud appears inside that funnel because the pressure is low, and I'll show you that in just a moment. All right, this one, a gust front. It tells you a thunderstorm is coming toward you. Cold air rushes out, hits the ground, and spreads out, and it creates a bank of clouds ahead of a thunderstorm. So that simply tells you it's time to go inside. So on TV, we love to show you these different satellite views of the Earth, And there are endless combinations and variety of clouds, and each cloud has a little job. Its job is to move moisture around the earth. Its job also is to help balance the temperature by creating shade or letting the sun shine in. So they are a natural part of our earth. Here's you should write this down, do a search for NOAA, N-O-A-A, jet stream, and that will take you to a website. Again, search for NOAA jet stream. It'll take you to a website where you can get all this really cool weather information. Now, this shows the different layers of the clouds. Cumulonimbus, stratus, stratocumulus, and cumulus, those are the lower clouds. Above those, you have your altocumulus, your nimbostratus, and your altostratus. And notice how this cumulonimbus, it goes all the way up. That's the tallest cloud. And then way up high where airplanes fly, you have your cirrostratus, your cirrus, your cirrocumulus. So those are basically your clouds. Keep looking. They're endless. And this is what you definitely want to get. When you go to that website, NOAA Jet Stream, you can download this cloud chart. And the cloud chart shows you every single cloud that's in a category. Now there's some that are still not in categories, from the high clouds to the middle clouds to the low clouds. And you'll notice that you have little symbols here, and those are symbols used around the world by meteorologists who don't speak the same language, so that we can communicate to each other about what kind of cloud that it is. That's the way the NOAA Jetstream website looks. And then another website you should go to is the International Cloud Atlas. So do a search for WMO, which stands for World Meteorological Organization, and weather, WMO weather. It'll take you to the International Cloud Atlas. All right, so I don't have a lot of time left. I'm going to do a quick experiment. Here I have an empty container. I'm going to put a little water in here. And what I'll try to do is, when I'm done with the Facebook Live, I'll go back and I'll read some of your questions and try to answer them for you. So I'm just going to put a little water. This is warm water, because we know clouds are made of water. I'm just going to swirl it around. But to get a cloud, that water has to evaporate and then condense. But there is one more thing you need to make a cloud, and that thing is, I'm going to move this out of the way, some kind of little particle for the water droplets to start growing on. So this, you have to do this with your parents have to do this for you. I'm going to light a match and blow the smoke into the container to make some particles. All right. I have closed the container. So in the container I now have warm water and smoke particles. Watch it carefully. I'm going to squeeze it, and then I'm going to let go. You see the cloud? I'll do it again. I'll squeeze it, it goes away, I let go, and the cloud comes back. So what's happening here, in order to get the relative humidity to go to 100%, when I let go of this bottle, the temperature gets lower. So when you squeeze something, it gets warmer. When you let it go, it gets colder. And when it gets colder, there's warm, there's cold, the relative humidity hits 100%, and there's your cloud. So that's how you make a cloud. All right, I didn't get a chance to, again, answer a lot of your questions. I'm going to go back on and type in your answers, so definitely check back in a little bit. Thank you for your time and your interest and fascination with the clouds. Keep on looking at the sky. Keep on studying the sky, and when you get a good weather photo, share it with me on my Facebook page. So thanks again. I'm Chief Meteorologist Alan Seals.